Welcome to Good News Now, a weekly message of hope. We read in Isaiah 64 that God has saved God's people with mighty acts of divine deliverance in the past, but they're asking, where is God now? The people Israel are bereft of hope in a time of challenge and pain. Isaiah 64 is a poetic protest against the pain they are feeling and a direct appeal to God to intervene. Doesn't that sound familiar to you? We hear so many people saying today that we need a miracle to, well, you pick which one you've heard or even said. We need a miracle to bring people back to church, to bring the country back together, to save our young people from the isolation of today. How about human trafficking, refugees, food insecurity, getting a handle on viruses, violence and division in our society, or climate horrors like the California fires or North Carolina hurricanes? These and so many others are such major issues that it's hard to see God while we're looking at them, isn't it? It was hard for those Israelites so long ago, and it's hard for us. If we look at just what we have in front of us in this passage from Isaiah, the Israelites confess their sins to God in verse 7 when they can't see God's face. There is no one who calls on your name or attempts to take hold of you. They haven't said that it's the other person who doesn't call on God's name or that it's the other person who doesn't attempt to take hold of God. They say no one does it, including the writer himself. There's no one who calls on God's name or attempts to take hold of God. And because of that, God has hidden God's face from them and delivered them into the hand of iniquity. And after the confessions, they plead to God for deliverance, raising words of trust in God, praising God, speaking aloud the hope that God has placed in their hearts. This word of hope that is proclaimed is profound. It speaks of the unbreakable tie that binds them to God and to one another. You, O Lord, are our God. We are the clay, and you are our potter. All are the works of your hand. What does it mean for us to be the clay and God to be our potter? How is it a proclamation of hope for us today in a world of challenge and pain? As we watch a potter lovingly caress the clay into the beautiful shape of a pot, it seems impossible that any potter would allow the creation to be in a position where it is broken by its circumstances. How could God, the master potter, allow God's chosen people to be as broken as they are by the horrors that continue in the world? If God is truly all-powerful, why does pain continue? It's the plea of the created against seeming unreasonableness on the part of the Creator. Can the potter allow the work to be broken in pieces on which the potter has lavished utmost skill and care? Maybe that's why we have to be confronted with the horrors of today. I think it speaks of our need to be broken down before we will accept the hand of our master potter to build us back up. When the people of Isaiah's time end this lament, they end with a plea, a prayer to God. Do not be exceedingly angry, O Lord, and do not remember iniquity forever. The pot made by the master potter is the potter's work. We have been formed by God, and we are dependent on God to make us what God will have us to be. This whole verse is an acknowledgement of the sovereignty and grace of God. It expresses the feeling we all experience when we understand that we have exposed ourselves to God's displeasure by our own transgressions. It's a time when we understand that if we are to be saved, it must be by the grace of God. That's when we plead with God to mold us, make us, fill us, use us, and guide us at God's own will. We are God's masterful, precious work. And when we have been taken to the lowest, darkest part of our lives, the broken places of humanity, God molds us into a new creation, filled with God's own heart and soul, as any master potter does. Yes, we are the clay, and God is the potter. And we plead to God, now consider we are all your people. Amen.